Security cameras rolling. A 16-year-old girl standing frozen against a glass display case, hands shaking, while a store manager loudly accused her of stealing a watch she never touched. She hadn't said a word yet. She didn't need to, because in the next 10 minutes, the man walking through those front doors, the one she was about to call, would make that manager wish he'd checked the footage before he opened his mouth. Before we go further, hit subscribe. What happens when her father walks in will stay with you long after this video ends. The mall was crowded with the usual Saturday afternoon rush. Maya Ellison, 16 years old, stood near the glass jewelry counter inside Preston & Cole, a high-end watch retailer tucked between a coffee shop and a shoe store. She'd come in with her best friend, Jasmine, just browsing, killing time before their movie started. She wore a simple hoodie and jeans, backpack slung over one shoulder. Nothing unusual, nothing that should have drawn a second glance. Store manager Gary Holt had been watching her for the past 4 minutes. Not the other 3 teenagers browsing nearby. Not the middle-aged man trying on cufflinks at the next counter. Just her. "Excuse me," Gary said, voice carrying sharply across the store as he approached. "I need you to open your backpack." Maya blinked, caught off guard. "I'm sorry, what?" "Your backpack," Gary repeated, louder now, drawing the attention of nearby customers. "I saw you near the watch display. One of our pieces is missing." "I didn't take anything," Maya said, voice trembling slightly, though she kept her hands visible, unmoving. "I was just looking." "That's what they all say," Gary said, arms crossed, positioning himself between her and the exit. "Open the bag, or I'm calling security." Jasmine stepped forward, phone already rising to record. "You can't just accuse her like that. She didn't touch anything." "I watched her hover by that case for almost 5 minutes," Gary snapped, not taking his eyes off Maya. "I know what I saw." A small crowd had begun to gather, whispers rippling through the store. Maya's hands trembled as she slowly unzipped her backpack, tears welling in her eyes despite her best effort to stay composed. "There," she said, voice cracking, as Gary rifled roughly through her notebooks, phone charger, and a half-eaten granola bar. "I told you. Nothing. Maybe you already stashed it somewhere else," Gary said, refusing to back down, even as his search came up empty. "Or handed it to your friend." "This is insane," Jasmine said, still recording, voice shaking with anger. "You don't have any proof." Maya reached for her phone with trembling hands, pressing a single contact she'd saved under one word. "Dad. Please," she whispered into the phone, voice breaking. "Can you come to the mall, Preston & Cole? Please hurry." Gary rolled his eyes, unaware of what he'd just set into motion. Calling for backup won't change what the cameras show. Exactly 9 minutes later, the glass doors at the mall entrance swung open. A tall man in a tailored charcoal suit walked in, moving with quiet, deliberate purpose, the kind of presence that made people instinctively step aside. Gary didn't notice him at first, but Maya did, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she finally exhaled. "Dad," she said quietly. The man's eyes swept the store, landing on his daughter's tear-streaked face, and then, slowly, on the badge clipped to his own belt, still visible beneath his open jacket. The man crossed the store in long, purposeful strides, and something in his expression made Gary's confident posture falter for the first time. "Maya," he said, voice controlled, but carrying unmistakable urgency. "Are you okay?" "I didn't take anything," Maya said, tears finally spilling over as her father reached her side. "He wouldn't believe me." Gary stepped forward, still clinging to his earlier certainty. "Sir, I understand you're upset, but your daughter was loitering near our display case, and we're missing." "Detective Marcus Ellison," the man said, cutting him off, voice calm but edged with steel, as he reached into his jacket and produced a badge, holding it up without ceremony. "And you are?" Gary's face went slack. "Gary Holt, store manager." "Detective," Gary repeated, voice suddenly unsteady. I didn't realize." "You wouldn't have," Marcus said evenly, "because you didn't ask a single question before deciding my 16-year-old daughter was a thief. You just accused her, in front of a crowd, based on nothing but watching her stand near a display case. There's a missing watch, Gary said, though his conviction had visibly cracked. A $12,000 piece. I have to follow protocol. Then let's follow it properly, Marcus said. Pull the security footage, all of it, from the moment my daughter walked in until now. Gary hesitated, glancing toward the back office, where his young assistant manager, Denise, stood watching the unfolding scene with wide, uncertain eyes. Denise, Gary said, voice tight, pull the footage. As Denise disappeared into the back room, Marcus turned his full attention back to Gary, his expression unreadable but heavy with quiet authority. While we wait, Marcus said, I'd like you to explain something to me. You said you watched my daughter for several minutes near that case. Did you watch anyone else with the same attention? Gary opened his mouth, then closed it. The 3 other teenagers browsing nearby, Marcus continued. The man trying on cufflinks. Did any of them receive the same scrutiny? Silence. That's what I thought, Marcus said quietly. A murmur rippled through the gathered crowd, several phones still recording, capturing every second of Gary's unraveling composure. Then Denise reappeared from the back office, tablet in hand, her face pale. Mr. Holt, she said quietly, I think you need to see this. Gary's stomach dropped as she turned the tablet toward him, toward all of them, because the footage on that screen was about to reveal something far worse than a simple mistake. Gary's hands trembled as he took the tablet, eyes scanning the footage playing across the screen. The timestamp read 20 minutes earlier, well before Maya had even entered the store. That's not possible, Gary whispered, watching the recording. What is it? Marcus asked, stepping closer, voice low and controlled. Denise answered before Gary could, her voice unsteady. The watch wasn't stolen. It fell behind the display case during restocking this morning. I found it wedged against the wall when I went to pull the footage. The color drained completely from Gary's face. You're telling me, Marcus said slowly, each word deliberate, that the watch was never missing at all. It was a restocking error, Denise said quietly, unable to meet anyone's eyes. I should have caught it hours ago. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, several onlookers exchanging disbelieving glances. Jasmine lowered her phone slightly, though she kept recording, her expression hardening with quiet fury. So you accused a 16-year-old girl of theft, Marcus said, voice carrying through the silent store, searched her bag in front of strangers, reduced her to tears, over a watch that was never stolen in the first place. I didn't know, Gary said, the excuse sounding hollow, even as it left his mouth. I saw her near the case, and I assumed. You assumed, Marcus repeated, just like you assumed she was more likely to be a thief than any other customer in this store today. Gary had no response. There wasn't one that would matter now. Marcus turned to his daughter, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. You okay? Maya nodded, though her voice still trembled. I just don't understand why he didn't even ask me first. Why he just decided. Because some people don't think they need to ask, Marcus said quietly, loud enough for the entire store to hear. They just look, and decide, and act, and hope nobody ever holds them accountable for what happens next. He turned back to Gary, his expression hardening. I want your regional manager's contact information, Marcus said, and I want to know exactly how many times this has happened before today. Gary's mouth went dry, because the answer to that question was about to become a lot more public than he ever could have imagined. Gary's hands shook as he reached for his phone, scrolling to find the regional manager's contact information, his earlier confidence completely gone. Sir, he started, voice barely above a whisper. I don't have exact numbers, but there have been other incidents. Complaints. How many? Marcus asked, his tone leaving no room for evasion. Denise answered instead, her voice quiet but resolute. 6, in the past year, all from black customers, all dismissed internally, without formal review. The store had gone completely silent, every remaining customer and employee absorbing the weight of what was unfolding. 6, Marcus repeated slowly, and my daughter makes 7. Gary lowered his head, unable to meet anyone's eyes. "I've spent 18 years on the force," Marcus said, his voice steady, but carrying real weight now. "I've seen what happens when patterns like this go unchecked. It's never just one bad day. It's a system that keeps allowing it, over and over, because nobody with real authority ever stops to ask why." He pulled out his own phone, dialing a number he clearly knew from memory. "This is Detective Ellison," he said when the call connected. "I need to file a formal complaint against Preston and Cole, location at Ridgemont Mall, discriminatory conduct, false accusation of theft against a minor, and a documented pattern of similar incidents." Gary's face went pale as he listened to Marcus calmly recount every detail, every failure, every dismissed complaint Denise had just revealed. When the call ended, Marcus turned back to Gary one final time. "You're going to apologize to my daughter," he said quietly. "Not because I'm a detective, not because of what happens to your job after today, but because she deserved basic decency, and you failed to give it to her." Gary turned to Maya, his voice unsteady, genuine shame finally crossing his face. "I'm sorry. I was wrong, and I shouldn't have treated you that way." Maya nodded slowly, though the tears in her eyes hadn't fully dried. "You didn't even ask me what happened. You just decided." "I know," Gary said quietly. "I'll carry that with me." 3 weeks later, Preston and Cole announced a company-wide bias training initiative across all locations, along with an independent review of every dismissed complaint from the past 2 years. Gary Holt was reassigned to a non-customer-facing role pending further review. Denise, who had quietly stepped forward with the truth despite the discomfort, was promoted to store manager. Maya returned to Ridgemont Mall months later, this time walking through Preston and Cole with her father beside her, greeted not with suspicion, but with a warm, genuine welcome from the new staff. "You okay being back here?" Marcus asked quietly. Maya nodded, watching a young employee greet another teenage customer with the same easy respect she should have received from the very beginning. "I think it's a little better now," she said. Marcus smiled, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "That's the goal," he said. "Not perfect, just better. One place, one person, one moment at a time."